Hey man, we know y'all missed us 2 weeks ago. We took us a little break, had some things to take care of. But we back. Optimize the game is in the building. It's your boy E-Glaze, and that's my guy Bobby J. He turned such and such age twice this year. Once on his birthday, once in March. But we were just enjoying the day. Had to take care of some things, and we back, y'all. We here. We here, man.
Yes, sir. Yes,
How
sir.
you? How's it been, brother?
Ah, man, cannot complain, man. How about yourself? How you feeling?
Doing well, man. Doing well, man. I just wanted to get back into the swing of thing. This is episode number 11.
Are we in double digits? Yay!
Yeah. Well, we
Hey,
this
double digits.
today's episode we are evaluating legacy. Very
Ooh.
interesting topic to talk about. Well, we all know the Reverend Jesse Jackson passed away this couple of weeks ago, and yesterday, not earlier this week, they had a big ceremony. Everybody was there. People are remembering Jesse Jackson, 84 years old. I think he died in his home. He was on hospice, if
I
I'm
think
not
so.
mistaken.
I think so.
Um, but we're in a different era now, and it made me. I actually brought this up a couple of weeks ago, but now we're here now. In this day of an age, everybody questions everything. Everybody has something to say, and people have been up and down. Some people are trying to protect this legacy. Some people trying to tell you a fool for even believing in this legacy. I just want to just say, can we just say Godspeed, bro? But we can't say that these days. But this is the area we living in. Some people say the current president was his friend. Some people say not this current president. This man wear hats when people pass away. But anyway, but I asked Bobby. I said, Bobby, we got to talk about it a little bit and give us that idea because I have my idea of Jesse and things about that. I'm not big into the. I just look at certain things and be like, that was cool. And then is it neither here or there? But I want to ask Bobby this: how should we
Come on.
evaluate?
Put me
No,
on the
no,
spot. Okay.
I'm doing it from a grand perspective.
Okay. Okay.
How should we evaluate legacy when leaders are both impactful and imperfect?
Mm, mm. There's a part of okay. So full disclosure, I'm not the biggest fan of Jesse Jackson. I will not speak ill of the dead, and I will not um, disrespect or disregard the impact that he had um, as far as his leadership, what he meant to the black community at some point in his life.
Yeah.
So, because when you made that statement, the first thing I said, well, the first thing we got to do is evaluate did they really have impact. So I will say yes that Jesse, if we're just using Jesse as an example right now, y'all,
Yeah.
because he's the most recent that has made his transition. But that's a very good question. I think it is a complicated issue when we're talking about um, humans. We're
Yeah.
talking about flesh and blood. We're talking about men, especially in this case, that people are prone to make mistakes. It's just a part of life. I teach chess, and part of the game is you're going to mess up. There's
Yeah.
no one plays a perfect game.
Great point.
Um, so we have to take that into consideration and give my mantra for 2026 give some space and grace for people to be who they really are. So I will. It's a matter. It's a very insightful question you asked because it forces me, and I hope it forces our listeners as well to take a look in the mirror first before we start looking at the speck in our brother's eye. To kind of paraphrase the Bible. Can I get the log out of my own? So
Yeah.
I think that's the first thing we have to do is to understand that every one of us is has a flaw or 60 um, that that says, you know what, just because I messed up here doesn't mean that I wasn't pretty good over there.
It's funny. We've talked about this in the 10 episodes before this about one of the things that used to piss us off is when we hear this younger generation saying, "Man, if I ain't like my grandparents, or I ain't like my ancestors," we'd be like, "What did they do wrong besides try to help you grow?" I am with you. I know he has some issues, and I'm not one of those blind people like, oh man, he ain't do he. No, He was flawed. Even the great Andrew Young, who's the last of the Mohicans, as we say,
Right,
is
right.
he has his things. I think my main thing is not to oversensitize the life. Like you said, we're not going we don't speak ill of the dead. But I'm also like, in this day and age, Bobby, when we are working on impact as leaders,
Yeah,
because I know I ain't finna go on and I'm sure there's a tweet or two that I said 10 years ago that they somebody can pull up on me right now and be like, man, when you said this play, and I'll be like, God dang it. Whew. I know y'all really dug that deep like that, but good Lord.
yeah,
But
yeah.
when you talk about us being as leaders and having to make the hard decisions, having to deal with criticism, having to learn in public. I do get sensitive when everybody bring up a lot of the new wave of Black Power people love to bring up. Well, King had this and that, and they had this, and he had these men and women on the side. I'm like,
Right,
yeah, you wasn't getting that water hole hit with you. You wasn't getting that head.
right,
You wasn't
right.
bleeding. You ain't spent
Yeah.
a day in jail. So the real
Have you
question
been?
becomes: did that
Mhm.
impact ultimately move people or organizations forward? And if so, are we spending too much time looking at their spec? I love that spec and I thing. That's a great way of putting it because I know
Yeah.
I'm the one that'd be like, man, like, he ain't all that. I'm. Look, I'm a boo. I'm Riley around here. Boo.
Boo. You suck.
I
Boo.
Riley in a minute, boy. I pull out that in a minute. But for you, man, what are your thoughts on that, dog?
Whew, it's you are really putting me on the spot today. Um, well, because part of me, man, is again, I'm doing my best, especially as I get older. In my 20s, when I was a little bit more of a firecracker or a firebrand, I'm throwing stones at people and they think this and I'm gonna tell you, my favorite example was Nelson Mandela.
Ooh,
I've always been a fan of Winnie.
yeah,
Because Winnie was a firebrand. Winnie say whatever come out of her mouth, and I'll be there and I edit. How the kids say. Um, but Nelson came off, a relative, especially in his older years, when I really got to understand him, and kind of know his legacy. It always came across as a very, uh, quaint and pacifist, and we want to all bring South Africa together, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
And I was like, man, punk. And then I said to myself, in the same way you said about King, you ain't got to be hit with the hoses and bit by the dogs. I was like, I don't know what 4 decades in a prison would do to me. Like,
Good
hold on,
God, good
man.
God.
Until I have walked that road, let me shut up talking about Mandela so bad. So I'm very aware now, and keen not to just start tossing out civil rights leaders or Black Power leaders or whoever we labeled as leader, because I didn't like the way they did X, Y, or Z. I will say that as a leader, a lot of your or should be a lot of your leadership should be based on your character.
Hmm.
And the moment you begin to show character flaws, I got to look at you a little differently.
Correct.
Again, doesn't take away from some of the good you might have done, but I do have to begin to question what is your reason and rationale for why you did it. Did a few people benefit in spite of or because of? And that's the question I have to ask myself.
That's a great question too, because we start to. it- I've always wondered this: when times were hard, is that when you become the great leader of your people? But once sometimes when you get invited in rooms that you normally wasn't getting invited in, what you were, does that make you change your leadership style? You bring up Nelson. Nelson went to
Mhm.
jail. He was, yeah, man, fighting for the people. 37 years later, he's like,
Mhm.
I'm tired. I'm 70. What was he, 60 something when he got it? I'm
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah.
Hey, let's come together, y'all. Man, I was in that thing by myself, solitary for forever.
Solitary.
Y'all out here, what all I got was a one, 3 meals, a couple of meals a day, and I was sucking the. I'm tired. I want to, does it take away sometime, Bobby, from your, or do you get? I want to ask it this way: when you're at a legacy point, when you're trying to create legacy, once the rooms get open that you've been trying to fight for, do you become softer? I say, do you become a little? Hey, I know how we were fighting. Yeah, I was out there in the 90 degree the weather, but now it's air conditioning here, so
Yeah.
things look different. I'm a kind of I'm kind of a star right now. So do you change? Does the character change, or is that your real character at the beginning? What is it that you just have
Ah,
to?
that's a good question. Maybe it doesn't change at all. Maybe that's just the nature of who we are. I look at it like this. I have to define where's my finish line because in 100 meters, Usain Bolt is moving. But at 105, at 110, in a 100-meter race, he ain't running the same force that he did for the first 50. He didn't cross the finish line, and so he's slowing down.
Right.
He's backing off. And so I look at leadership the same way. Like if I'm fighting for equality to get my children in particular schools or get housing equal or pay increases or whatever, and I hit that goal, it's kind of like okay, what's next? Uh, you know, I mean, uh, yeah, yeah. That's why they say the hardest thing to do is back-to-back championships
Right.
because it's like once you did it, it's like I mean, you can speak from experience on that, dude.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's hard. So how did you feel? If we can flip it on that for a quick second, when you hit your goal, how
Mhm.
much more difficult was it to come back and do it all over again?
That goal was a little different. I'm gonna be honest with you
Okay.
because the year before we won, everybody said it was all about we had to find something else to find that hunger
Okay.
for. You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
Yeah, we did it, but we were also told the only reason we won it was because of Garrison Hurst. So my
Right.
class was like, okay, all right. So we won, but it was kind of like, oh, that ain't our championship. Okay, this year will be our champ. So we had to find
Right.
that different anger, and I think that's a great point you point. Like once you
Yeah.
cross the finish line, I'm fighting for teachers. Woo, we got it. Dang it,
right.
now you got to say, all right, we got the teachers. Who's next? What else
Oh,
can we do?
now.
Because
Right.
everybody ain't, just because you cross one finish line, there's another race that's coming
The,
up.
the, the 200 and the 4x1 is right around the corner.
The big
Yeah.
races are still here, and so
Yeah.
it brings up my second point. Legacy shouldn't just be about mistakes. It should also consider, did the leader grow? Did they take accountability? And did they learn and evolve? And that's where we at now. We've
Mm.
seen them when they were going through the phase of preparing, setting up the blocks, running, hitting the 50 to 60. But did they trip somebody up? Did they not finish? Did they run one race and was like, I'm done? What did
Right.
they do after it? Accountability is hard in leaders with legacy in our leaders. And
Ooh.
we see some things and we say, is he just cruising now? Does he know what he's doing? Did he know he did? And I think we talking about the same thing with certain people, but we ain't gonna bring that up. But did he do?
We're not gonna mention names. We just
Yeah.
go.
But man, that's a great put it. Once you cross the finish line, and because when you cross the finish line, you're still cruising and you walking
You're
back and
cruising. Yeah. Yeah.
coming back and clapping. Did
Right.
you forget the race, the preparation, the struggle? Does it just stop? Or if you're in a Usain Bolt who retired, did the gut just get bigger and you just be like, I'm good now? I mean,
But that does not left to prove. I mean, why are we still doing this?
why we still doing this? You look at that. Do they take accountability after the fact, or do leaders should they continue to? Coretta Scott King is always going to be one of those people. I don't know her story, like behind the
Right.
scenes, but I know what's put out there. She said she was married to the movement.
Yeah.
Martin had died at 37. She lived to 72. That's how many
Yeah.
years she didn't see no man with her, showed up, came to particular places. sh- Martin Luther King did. And I'm like, dang, no mistakes. No, you couldn't catch her when, she might have said a few things. Her kids might have had a few issues, but she never allowed her legacy or the legacy of King, because she was holding on to two legacies at the time,
That's right.
to
That's right.
falter. And I guess, Bobby, that's why I come out. Do you have to, once you cross the finish line, you still got to be a good sport. You got to shake hands. You got to make sure and keep going. Do we fall? Do we, when we cross that finish line, do we fall short sometimes? I guess that's the question.
So a couple of things. I think crossing the finish line, whatever that finish line may be for us, you should take time to celebrate. You should
Mm,
take time to say, hey, we did that. And congratulate yourself and your teammates and hug your coaches and dap your folk up and wave to the crowd and put the flag over you. All of the celebrate. That's great. Just have to remember that we got another heat coming.
that was at
The
the
200.
prelims.
Yeah, it was a prelim. Hey, let's not celebrate too hard yet.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we signify that we say, hey, there is a time to enjoy what you have done, the fruits of your labor, so to speak. In the vein of Coretta, you nailed a beautiful one right there. She was, man, whew, golly. I won't say unblemished, because I don't know her personal story.
That's why I
What
said I
I
don't
will,
know. Yeah.
right. I know what the history books have told us,
Yeah.
and some of the verbal catchings around the city of Atlanta, because this is where she really cut her teeth.
Yeah.
Um, but nothing has ever been a negative hit. I
Mm.
will say it this way: um, the morning of her funeral, it was shout out to my daughter Ebony. Ebony was, I don't even know if she was double digits yet. She might have been 8, 9 years old, and she was like, "Dad, we gotta go." And we literally stood out, and I think it was at New Birth they held it,
I think it
uh,
was.
and we stood outside in the cold at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Me and my daughter, because she wanted to go pay tribute to Coretta Scott King. So if a woman's legacy has touched somebody who, at she was what 70 years removed from this child,
Yeah. Right.
that says a lot about a person.
Wow. That's a good
And
point.
that's what our legacy should be. So back to your whole term of impact, even in our imperfection, the impact that her life had on hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, simply by being the woman that she was, and being, like you said, married to the movement. Her quote, um, that's gotta say something. That has
Right.
to have some point value,
Yeah.
regardless of how we want to look at other stuff.
Does our legacy, when it comes to the work that we do, or whoever does the work, does it depend on who is writing the history or who's talking? Like, should we work to protect the legacy of others? Because sometimes we allow the legacy just to be taken over and being, you be like, I don't remember none of those stories. Yeah, because here goes some stuff you ain't know about. But I'm like, okay, so now we supposed to just say, dang, he ain't no good. I mean, when it comes to somebody's legacy or our own legacy, we should be doing our. Should we be protecting that, or do we allow outsiders to come in and push the legacy to go into a different narrative?
The quote has always been, Until the lion learns how to write, the story will always favor the hunter."
Mm.
So it's funny. I had a conversation earlier with a friend, and they were asking when they said, "Do you know who Hannibal is?" I said, "Hannibal of Carthage? Of course I do." And they were like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah." Like, you don't? I said, "Well, let me explain this to you." I said, Hannibal of Carthage, being probably the greatest military general of all time,
Hmm.
the one who took the fight to Rome when it was the sun never sets on the Roman Empire type Rome.
Right.
Um, I said he was such a great warrior that the only way they could defeat him historically was to make him white. That the argument has come now that not that he didn't exist, not that oh he was actually wasn't black. Oh, okay, but that lets you know what happens when you don't control your own narrative.
Mm.
This man rode into battle against the Romans on elephants. Can you tell me any European country that's got elephants? But we'll leave that there. But this is the importance to your question of being able to control your story. Our high school is TSK Prep. It's Thomasana Kiyama Preparatory Academy of Creative Arts and Media Technology. And the reason that media technology tag is there is we teach them on a regular basis. You have to control your story.
Mm.
If not, um, your kings, your Malcolms will be turned into, wimps and punks, and I ain't my ancestors, and because that's what begins to happen. I give you a personal one, and this is so small, it's so petty, but I can't. When the Black Lives Matter hit, and then all of these allies started showing up, or what have you, everybody was putting up the symbol of the fist. You look at it, everybody throwing the power fist up, and I just kept looking, going. And what I realized is that on every poster, on every picture, when people were in crowds, they were throwing up the left hand.
Mm.
Historically, the right hand was the power fist. I don't know what the left fist stands for, but because everybody was so locked into the left hand, I kind of was like, is this intentional? Like, what's going on? But again, if you don't control the narrative, if your bankroll is by people who don't look like you, if your media is controlled by people who don't look like you, television, radio, print, movies, it don't matter. So you can do all the great things you want to do, but when your story gets told, you're still gonna be a punk because you ain't the one telling your story.
Man, that's sad to even hear. And we might have a whole show on the BLM movement one day.
We can't do that. I won't. I'll be nice to Jesse. I don't know if I'll be so nice.
That movement was different, and it was
different. You're right. Hold on. You're right. You're right.
But it's funny you say that though, and the reason why I brought that up is because we're in a time now where, and I try not to be on social media. It's bad, but it's part of what when you post on it, and then you kind of run into things. You like, who told y'all that, or what did y'all? And they research so much too. They research themselves out of us. You can research a man's legacy out of his own legacy. Right. You can be like, that ain't he ain't do that. We even have people now trying to defend certain people, saying that he wouldn't have liked it. The man passed. The man didn't care about that and all that. But when I bring up supporting and protecting legacies, we do see where you kind of mean when we don't have the economic power, we don't have the media power, we don't protect it. We're going to do whatever the money tells us. That's a heavy driven way of life right now. So I think the reason why I want to bring up legacy, why it's so important to me right now is because we all had that crossroads. One of my favorite movies, The Crossroads. You sitting there looking like this. And when you are trying to do things for your community, but in order to get the resources to do that, you might not be able to do certain things the way you want to. And you talked about character. How much of your legacy is depending on what you had to do to get things done? You know what I'm saying? And when you're sitting there, because there's a certain leader or black power guy who's fought and he got tired because he couldn't get certain things. And now that he's getting certain things, now he's much happier. And I wonder how he got certain things. But when you're trying to get things done, when you're trying to get that bus to take the kids here, or you're trying to get these tickets, you're trying to get these meals, and you ain't getting the help that you need sometimes, bro. I feel like this show just went a whole different route because maybe my mind just spilling out at the same time. And you know what you try to do with your legacy. You know what you would like to do. You know what you wanted to do. But sometimes society just say, if you want this, you got to do this. How much of that do you see, Bobby, and say, damn, I see what you were trying to do, but it doesn't have the effect you wanted to.
Bruh, I am so on the fence about that because I've done some history, I've done some studies, and I've seen a lot of good things that have come down the pipe for a lot of good people. But when you go back and look at the stories and you see what some of those people did to get to those things, you're like, ugh.
Could I have done
it? Yeah, could I have done it? And matter of fact, if I'd have known they were doing that at the time, would I have ridiculed them for doing it?
Yeah.
So I guess the question comes into people like some of our favorite business owners, entrepreneurs, entertainers. that bootleg, that sold dope, that ran numbers, that prostituted, that stripped, that did
Yeah,
a whole bunch of immoral slash illegal things in order to open the grocery store and in order to open the barbershops, plural, in order to open the car dealerships and the schools. And
yeah.
like, I, am I?
Boy,
It's a catch 22 for me, brother. It really is because
boy.
I don't know what my threshold is. I know there's certain things I can't see myself doing. Watch my words there. I can't see myself doing. I ain't gonna be so vain as to be like, I never. I just don't know. I don't think I would. I would assume I wouldn't, but that's it's sticky, man. It's really sticky.
And it's funny. Me and you talked about this 5 to 10 years ago. I don't even know if you remember it. And I'm not gonna tell you the situation, but we ain't gonna bring up the company either. But I asked you, say, man, what if such and such come in and boom, here's $1 million.
I remember this.
You were like, I mean,
I
I
mean,
take it, but I wouldn't put by such and such. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like you know
right?
what you can do with this money. You know what you can
Yes.
do with this whole ideal, and you know what do you give up what you fighting for, or I won't say fighting for.
Yeah. No, I think fighting for is a good term because because it's not only external struggle; it's an internal battle.
Yeah, you fighting.
That's really where the fight is. Like,
And you
do I
keep
take
looking at
that check?
you keep looking at this, man, I'm raising $100 a month, and this man just
What?
gave me 1 million times more. And I know boy, you just brought up that whole thing about going to prison, selling dope. You're like, well, I can feed. There was a show called Chicago PD.
Yeah.
Love the show. And there's one episode where they had a guy, or more, they had a multiple episode, but he was a drug dealer. He sold drugs, took out people. But they said he would take that money and he would benefit the people that were really trying to get out, who were doing things. So he would take his money. Yeah, he was big time dope, but he was feeding children. He would sending kids to school. And it was like he said he was a modern day Robin Hood, steal from the poor,
Right.
but he stole from the poor to help the ones who wanted to do better in their neighborhood. And people were
Right.
like, he's still a crook and all that. But I'm like, I see what he's trying to do. But it makes me question, Bobby. And we see a lot of people where we say, like you said, if you do history, you like, oh, he did what? Oh, I didn't know he. Oh,
Can I really toss one at you?
yeah.
Because I don't. None of this. We talked about the legacy of Mandela and King, and then slash Winnie and Coretta. So we don't want to make it a gender thing. It works on both sides of the fence. Who's one of the greatest? Well, matter of fact, the first black millionaire we ever learned about in Black History Month.
Madam C.J. Walker,
What's the first thing you said? What's her name?
Madam.
Madam. What is a madam, dude?
Huh?
Madam ain't somebody. Madam is a person who runs
You
a
know,
brothel.
you notice I didn't say C.J. Walker.
Right,
Madam
right.
C.J. Walker.
So this woman that we should tout her. We should load her to the yes, she did a thing. But I know what a madam does. I
Yeah.
know the history of madams, and it's like, should we? Yeah, we teach her. Okay. I mean,
And we never
so
took that
yes,
madam off her name either.
never did, never did. Couldn't. And again, I'm not saying this is anything I can say, or I have evidence that says, no, I'm just saying from a historical perspective, we understand what a madam is, what it does. And during that time, what better way was there to make millions of dollars? Like, that's the oldest occupation on the planet. so, do we throw, again, impact versus imperfection? Like,
Mm. Boy, we might have just opened up a whole quandary with that one. Good Lord. Because
somebody gonna be mad about that statement we just made, dude. I'm gonna let you'll get some flack about that. Sorry, y'all, but man, it is what it is.
because remember Harlem Nights, one of their biggest business was the girls. Why we ain't making no money with the girls? How we fall short
Girls,
with the
girls
girls?
always coming up short.
How the girls always coming up short. Part of the business. It was part of the
It
business,
is.
man. Golly, bro. It is it's one of those things, man, when I look. and it's funny. I'm bringing this up now because we always have to make those decisions. And
Yeah.
the president, Morris Brown, our guy Kevin, Dr. James, he's had to make some decisions. He's had some imperfections. They've been very loud recently, and we see
Right.
that. But at the
Right.
same time, he's raising this and he's doing that, and I'm sitting there like, okay, what do we do? I mean, I know a whole nother Morris Brown group that's pissed, that are
I
trying to be
mean, upset.
angry. We trying to get rid of dude. But I'm still seeing him raising money. He still got these kids happy to go to school. He's creating programs. And you just keep looking imperfection versus impact. Is the imperfection sometimes bigger than the impact? I feel like once it happens, then that's when you start having problems. And in your eyes, Bobby, when does the character issue kind of make you be like, that's a little too strong for me to be still saying he did good in the neighborhood? You know what I'm saying?
The moment you the moment you dip your hand in the proverbial blood and rub it on your chest to show yourself as a victim from the person you just set up to get killed, then your character becomes an issue. And
Mm,
I got to look at you sideways. Again, I'm not mentioning any names. I'm just explaining that sometimes that the imperfection is so pronounced and it's so loud that your impact, I don't care what your impact is.
mm,
I don't care because you have done such an injustice and a disservice to somebody else's legacy,
right.
um, which you use to catapult yourself into some level of political acuity or power. I don't respect it. Now, again, that would make me that other group at Morris Brown that's just rah, 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 because there are plenty of people that will still uphold that and go, well, I mean, but the impact. Um, what I will say is to those, how can I talk? How can I explain to these kids that went from 19 students to 500, regain their accreditation, tell them, oh, this man ain't this or that? How, how am I say that to them? They graduating, they're going to grad school, they're starting businesses, they got their degrees, they're building their own legacy, their lives are changing financially and otherwise. And I'm gonna tell them this dude ain't crap. Again, but for me, there is a line. And you know what I hate about this podcast, dude?
Right.
That it's very difficult. Your podcast feels like being in a pulpit. If you ever stood in the pulpit and had to like talk to people, it make you want to say stuff. You're like, should I say
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
It's hard to stand up there and just. What I say that to say this that there is a line that I believe when character and character flaws, your imperfections, begin to dismiss the impact, whatever it is, whatever good you think you're doing. I've got my line, and I've crossed some lines.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to sit here and say like because we're men, we're humans. We're flawed. We have issues that we. All right, I probably shouldn't have done that one. I probably shouldn't have crossed that line. Um, but the number one thing I think that separates is when you are able to realize that and then come back and make atonement for it. I'm not so tripped out about people making mistakes or messing up.
Yeah.
What gets to me is when you can't acknowledge, yeah, I messed that up, and you won't acknowledge that I need to go back and correct something. That's where I get an issue.
Which goes back to what we were talking about in this particular question, accountability. I mean, that's been my
Yep.
thing as well. It's my line is when the impact is bigger for you than the people that you're trying to affect.
Mm,
That's my line. If I'm looking and I'm like,
mm.
you the only one getting something out of this. I don't see nobody else getting something from this. You
Nope.
getting this, you getting that, you smiling, you
Right,
your
right.
own front page cover. And I'm like, who with you? And I'm not trying to trust me. I'm the guy who got articles. I'm the guy who been happy and you see me cheese like a chestnut sometime with pictures. but sometimes I had to slap myself. I have to slow down and be like, wait, is anybody getting anything from this? Is
Right.
who, I've seen a lot of, and I look at it and I say, dang, is the impact bigger for you or for the thing that you said you were trying to do? And that's when I
Right.
started questioning. And I had to look, and that's the question I ask myself a lot. All right, I'm doing all this stuff, but who winning on this other side? Am I the only one who getting the pub? And as accountability, I will hope that your legacy, if you are one of those that people count on,
Yeah.
which goes back to another movement that we're talking about. We were starting to say, who getting something out of this besides them? Uh, but we're gonna leave that alone for another show. But we'll talk about that. So, Bob, when you're in the long term view and legacy, you should. What decisions truly matter? What time will reveal that? What was
Right.
your true impact? What was your? How long did it last? Is there still lessons that remain? And we don't have to talk about Jesse in general, but it was kind of when people start talking about the legacy of Jesse, and I start looking at it, and they're always going to be but this and but that and the things of that nature. But I'm like, what was his legacy? And when we come to ourselves and we are leaders, I ask that, what is your legacy? When people, I always say, when you're getting in the ground and you one that said you were trying to build a legacy, will it be, man, he did this, he helped this, or was it more of, man, he started off strong, but he tripped at the 50-yard line. Boy, he pulled a
Right.
hamstring. he was leading the race at 55, but he heard something pop. What is
Yeah.
what is the biggest thing about, it's not legacy, and I saw this quote, is rarely defined in that moment, but
Hmm.
as time goes on, what do you see when people do pass and things go on that you can say, all right, that was a legacy that was worth what they were trying to do?
To your point, I think as far as it not happening in the moment, but over some time and distance, I think legacy is only as strong as those that you can pass it on to.
Mm,
I think that because outside of that, it's a moment. It's a moment.
yeah,
King and the civil rights movement had a legacy because Coretta was there. Even almost 40 years after his death, she
yeah,
was still there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be bloodline. You know,
true.
there are people who have picked up the mantle of King that never met him, didn't
Hmm.
know, and have started movements overseas, in Europe and Africa and Asia. There are people who have never met a Malcolm or Betty Shabazz, but have carried on that legacy, way past the untimely death of Brother Malcolm. So whether it's your bloodline, I pray that whatever our legacy is on this side, our children are here to grab that baton and keep going. 4x100 style,
Yeah,
maybe even 4x4 because it's a long run.
this
And ain't
distance,
always
boy,
a sprint.
it's a mile here, boy. We still running.
We're still running. But even if it's not your bloodline, even if it's not your spouse, or maybe it's just a school you started, or maybe it's a group of kids you work with, or maybe it's a family you impacted, one holiday season. Who knows what it could be? But if there's somebody there to pick up what you started, even if you pop that hamstring or pull that tendon, you know the race is going to keep going because you got
Yeah,
somebody to run it for you. So
one of my favorite quotes, and I know I'm gonna jack this up, so all my Dark Knight fans, please, please don't get mad at me. I'm not a quoter. I just remember the scenes. But what did
gotcha.
and you know it better than me? You live long enough to become
Yeah.
the villain. If what
So
is it? Did you?
you either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. That is one of my favorite freaking quotes.
Does
Oh
that
man.
happen to us a lot? Because we're talking about some of our greatest heroes died young. And the older you get, you be like, you still, you know what I'm saying, dude? You could easily screw up something, staying old or living long enough to where they be like, man, your legs are messed up because you stayed up and you did this, and you was around too long, and you was doing this too long, and people started talking about you wasn't doing this. You like, but he was really good. And, does I don't know how to say this in a question, but can you live too long to tarnish your legacy?
Yep. Next question. No, no, really, that's accurate. That's why I love that quote from The Dark Knight so
Yeah,
much. And I will tell you, for those who are listening and those who are in leadership positions, be careful of that quote because when it comes to fruition, um, like again, um, we don't know. We just don't know. You've had people like a Jimi Hendrix who died, very early.
yeah,
People like a Martin and Malcolm who died, and Medgar, and all
yeah.
of these people who
Young.
died in young in the 30s.
Yeah,
And let me be clear: who were murdered. I hate
yeah,
me. Oh, they died. No, they were
yeah.
killed.
Yeah, they're cute.
Um,
Yeah.
so I will give you a perfect example of how it works, though. So the United States is currently at odds, and I'm gonna use that term, uh, with a country in the Middle East. We won't even get into the politics of it.
Yeah.
But they the recent killing of the supreme leader
Hmm.
of that country. Um, Now, I don't know much about this person. I
Hmm.
don't.
Hmm.
We can look at the books, and one media pundit will tell us this about this person. You go overseas to a different media, they'll tell us something different. You talk to a person from that country, they'll tell you something different. What I do know, and that now everybody can agree on, because he is now deceased, none of that matters. He's a martyr, and at that point, he is now the hero of this country. Period. There's
Yeah.
no arguments about it. There's no that the holiest of holies of this country was murdered during the holiest of holiest times for that country.
Right.
So had he stayed in and continued out and maybe brutalized his people, then he becomes the villain that everybody says. I don't know. But as of right now, his life was cut short, and he's now going to be hailed as an eternal hero for that
Yeah.
country because of that. So his deeds at this point don't even really matter. Um, that's the accuracy of that statement. But if you hang around long enough, because we're human, I keep saying this, and I know I keep coming back to it. We're human. My man Jehudi, one of my favorite spiritual leaders, personally, I always say, we're spirits having a human experience.
Mm.
Uh, and in that human experience, we're going to mess up. And the longer we are out here, the higher those odds go that we're going to mess up. I've never read, seen anything demeaning about Brother Malcolm after he transferred into Islam, after he turned over New Leaf and went from Detroit Red and Malcolm Little into El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. I never saw a bad word about him. Not disrespecting his wife, not messing with money, not messing with none of that. Now, I don't know. I don't know what happens. Does he revert to Detroit Red after he realized, man, these people they ain't listening to nothing. Uh,
I'm
I don't
sitting here
know.
trying to get all this stuff together, and they up here hating on me. I got stuff for all y'all.
I got something for you.
I'm gonna
we
become
got
the mayor of Detroit. What y'all gonna say?
wow, wow. You said, man, get your rest. So many jokes we can go through with that.
I'm trying not to. What up, though? What up, though?
But to your point, um, if we stay around long enough, something's apt to go. A hot mic that catches you saying something demeaning about the president of the United States is
Yeah,
bound to happen.
yeah,
Shout out to Jesse Jackson.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
It happens. It just and it's one of those things where reason I brought up Coretta. Yes, she probably did have some. You heard things, and people would say, "Man, she was hard to get to, and you couldn't take pictures." But and da da da. But 40 some years after her husband died, she still showed her hair in place, makeup, fr- creased clothes, everything. She looked like the movement.
Sharp. Sharp.
She didn't come in with the hair with a. Sorry, lady. She didn't come with a bonnet on. She didn't come with the moo on. She came. You saw Coretta. You saw the queen of the movement, or whatever, the mother of the movement. And I just look. She could have easily screwed up. She could have married a
Yeah.
dude that was, oh God, he ain't nothing like Malcolm. Martin.
Yep. Yep.
This guy terrible. You know what I'm saying? But she was like, nope. I'm here. I'm raising my
Yep.
kids. I'm raising my grandkids. I'm gonna show up at certain events. I'm gonna do. I didn't do. I'm not gonna do a ton of interviews, but I do a few, and it's gonna have it in line. And I always say to be able to do that for so long is hard because one thing when you build a house and you can continue to work on the house to make it the way it needs to be. But when
Yep.
people give you keys to other houses and bigger houses and plush houses, instead of you using the air conditioner that's in the window, you get that central air. Instead of you getting heat with logs of fire, that heat come in automatically and all that natural gas. You don't know what you're gonna do when
Yep.
the changes, the wind changes and the time changes. You're gonna sit there and like, oh, we can do this. I didn't know this was.
Right.
I
This
know
is
this
even a
was
possibility.
I said this was
Oh,
available. Yeah,
right.
but
It's easy.
it's tough. So I always look too, man. Even great John Lewis, as much as he went through, he was a congressman. He went to Congress, and there are people that got stories about him, and I'd be like,
You're making this so difficult for me right now.
I know, man, lived 83 years old, and people, I was like, come on,
Ah,
man.
one of the things on that though, Glaze, and I'm beginning to understand just as we're talking about this now, that the whole live long enough to become the villain, sometimes that ain't even about us. Sometimes we live long enough that we grow into another generation that don't understand.
Yeah,
And so what you mean you let people spit on you? You a punk. Like so maybe that ain't even about, not anything that you've done as a leader. You don't relate anymore, and people don't relate to you. And so now the things that we looked at as powerful and impactful, they look at it as compromising and cowardly, and you become a villain in their minds. So maybe that's what that is. I don't
I
know.
mean, if you look at, let's go back to Batman Two Face. The man snapped after his face got burned halfway off, and his girlfriend got killed, and
Yeah,
ain't
yeah,
nobody save her. So he was like, all
right,
right, then. So
yeah,
now everybody like he's the villain, but it was like, but he was fighting for y'all. He was doing whatever he can to stop the Joker. Then when he got half his face burned off, y'all was like, it's okay, bro, just stay strong.
yeah,
But it's
yeah.
it's, it's hard and it's funny. I'm just, and this may be another show. Talking about do you live too long? To do? I mean,
Oh,
how do you keep impact
oh,
after years? I mean, God bless
oh.
Andrew. Andrew just does speeches now. Shout out to Andrew. Just I'm here.
Shout out to Andrew Young, man.
We had a great time in the civil rights movement. We fought hard. God bless y'all. Good night. Take a picture.
Yeah,
I mean, that
yeah,
is
yeah,
so he tried not to get into politics too much. He's like, man, I'm trying to go to as many
yeah,
events. I'm trying to live life. I know some great people. I'm trying to instill wisdom. And I'm sure there's
yeah,
stories on him because he was the mayor of Atlanta. He was an ambassador. He did all
yeah,
kind of things.
yeah,
I met Maynard Jackson one time. Good dude, crazy
yeah,
dude. I mean, met him at a track. Not a crazy dude, but just fun dude, crazy fun dude,
yeah.
man. He
Crazy fun.
when people tell me about stories about him, I'm like, that guy, the guy I met at the track meeting, he literally sitting talking to some people that he had no idea who he was and just having a conversation. I'm like,
Yeah,
that guy, y'all don't like him? What he do? And I'm like, you're right. Sometimes we change the situation on people and we get there. Do you worry about that, Bobby, about your legacy? About
I do. I do.
outliving the good that you're doing and just people trying to find the bad?
I do, which is why I told a kid at Morse Brown that the other day. He was so concerned about one of his classmates and trying to get them to, see something a different way and help them out. And, da, da, da. And I told him, I said, you know what? There's a quote that I heard that says, I don't know the key to happiness, but I do know the key to misery. Try to
Hmm.
make everybody else happy.
Boy.
And so I've gotten to the point that I don't try and make the whole world happy about what I'm doing. I can't.
Yeah.
And sometimes that hurts those who put you on these pedestals. that see you on social media and think you're XYZ, and you like you don't really know what I'm dealing with on a regular basis. But run with that picture, and then sometimes it hurts those who are closest to you that see you every day and be like,
Yeah.
"Come on, man, you can do better than that."
Yeah.
Uh, you brought the perfect person up for those who are not from Atlanta and don't know the history of Maynard Jackson. Man, he is the perfect example of what you're talking about
Yeah.
because what we see is the politician, the handshaker, the baby kisser. That's how you get elected. What you don't see is the heavy hand, the one behind the scenes, the one that says, "Hey, you gonna give this contract to these brothers and sisters to get, or some things gonna happen." So, and both of these are the same person. That neither one of those are fake.
No.
That's just two dimensions of the same person. You sent me the topic, and normally I try to do a little research, but I didn't this time. But somebody came across my timeline that I had never heard of just this week out of the blue. The first prime minister of Singapore.
Mm.
I don't want to butcher his name, but Lee Kuan Yew, I think his name was. But he's noted for being just this real authoritarian type leader. Like you ain't finna mess with Singapore no more. We coming
Yeah.
and we're coming hard. And one of the statements he made was, and it was during the time that Singapore Airlines was having a union strike,
Mm.
and it was threatening the economy of the country, not just the airline of the
Right.
country. And he comes to the table and says, "Look, this ain't gonna happen on my watch. I don't care what we got to do. We've built this country. We built it." And the statement he made was, "If you are going to be a leader of Singapore, you have to have that iron in you to make the decisions."
Mm.
And it became this resounding tone around it, like you got to have that iron, that dog we call it on the field. And so these leaders, at some point, again, I wasn't there when Nelson got locked up when he was in his 20s and 30s, but I understand. I know what his wife was when he had that iron in her, and I'm pretty sure she wasn't going to hang out with somebody that didn't have that iron in them. We saw the resiliency of a Coretta and a Betty, so we know their husbands had that iron in them.
Yeah.
So that type of thing, man, that I can't worry about it too much. I think about it, but sometimes as a leader, you're gonna have to make the decisions that ain't gonna make people happy.
Boy, you just
Live with
mentioned something. Nelson went in at 30 some years old. He probably was a different dude.
that.
Coming out
Heck
at
yeah, he was
60 some
different.
years old, he probably like,
60.
hey dog, y'all went in there with the rats.
Hey, right,
Y'all wasn't eating porridge. Y'all wasn't in there, man.
yeah,
I can we all just get along? He went with his own.
right, right. Rodney King on him. I give you.
He's like, come on. I'm tired.
I'm tired.
That's why the Boondock episode with King when he came back after made sense. He was like, y'all did. I,
Moving the camera.
I did all this work. I took out. King got stabbed. I want to make sure I say this right. I always know history. By one of his, what a not what was it, a letter opener
It was a letter opener, yeah.
by a black woman,
A black woman.
and he was like, "Nah, nope, we ain't doing all that." She was confused, blah blah blah. But I'm like, you stabbed me. I'm holding that. I'm mad. And I'm like, hey. I'm not saying I'm excusing that.
Yeah.
I'm bleeding. I'm here chilling, trying to get things done, and that, nah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough, man. It's you die. What is it again? Say the quote, Black Knight.
You either die the hero or live long
Live long
enough
enough.
to see yourself become the villain.
It happens, and when we see that, when you bury somebody, you be like, dang, did he live too long? I mean, when he was in the 30s and 40s, he was, we felt different, but I we'll finish with this. I think we could talk about this all day, but
Man, we
um,
could.
what's the best way that you can look at your legacy? It's to me, it's about your impact, your growth, and what remains after you're gone. Like, What did you do while you was here? Did things grow when you were doing it? And can people still eat off of it when you leave? And eat off is a bad term, but that's what I'm thinking about. Can people still say, "Hey, that's still we still using that now"? I mean, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
your thoughts about that once you are in these situations, and it's hard, when you're living long enough to see your things, and you're like, "Yeah, it's good," but you still happen to be the good guy because you don't want to screw up that guy, and you have to make those thoughts. But creating, growing, and keep going, or is what I see is the best way you can try to create and build that legacy when you pass on.
Yeah, I agree with you that first of all, legacy is such a complicated thing.
Tough.
It's so multifaceted. If there was just a blueprint that says do it like this, and this, and that, okay, great. But that ain't how it works.
Nah, man.
Um, and so, for me, I'll harken back to what I said earlier. And it's a two-way responsibility with legacy. You got to be willing to, or you have to be able, not just willing, but able to pass that on to somebody.
Yeah.
You got to be able to say, hey, this is it. This is what we've done. Run with this now because I can't run no more. Go ahead and do that thing and give it to those who are coming after you. So, and the other side of that coin is, and then you got to be willing to let go of the baton. That has always been my beef. We're talking about legacy.
Boy.
You talk about do we maybe not necessarily live too long because I don't want to take anybody's years off this planet,
No, no,
but
no, no.
do we hold on to it too long? I absolutely think so. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a 400, 4x4, not a 4x8 or 4
But
by
it's not a 4x8, right? You
Yeah.
just coming around the track again. Wait, you were supposed to. I got it. I got it. I
You get
Come on.
tired.
I'm coming now. Ooh, hold on. Keep hope alive. Uh, my bad. God, I was gonna try to get to this thing without doing that.
We had a few minutes. We had a
We
few
did. We
minutes.
were almost there. We were almost there. God.
But you did say something to the show that made me think too. I am one of those, and this is me looking in the mirror right here.
Yeah.
I do kind of be one of those that'll see you make a flaw, have an issue, and oh man, see, I told you, he ain't even, that's who he ain't, the man could have did 100 things great, discovered this, cured cancer. You did one thing wrong. I'm like, see,
Ooh, that's it.
I am. That is a big flaw of mine because I be trying to throw the whole program away. You don't need to be messing
Oh,
with them, no. And I'm like, wait a minute, the dude, human. We can't,
that's it.
we can't. We don't see that. We only see, and unfortunately, we expect leaders to be perfect, which is a
Right.
huge problem. That's
Right.
where a lot of us fall short, dog. We expect once you take on the role, the mantle as a leader, they expect perfection from that point on. So, anything you wanna? I'm scared to ask you anything else because you might be gonna say something you cussed out somebody else.
I know.
Nah, bro. Anything else you want to wrap this up with, man?
I will ask this last question, and I'll leave it as a question. As a people, because we do. We've had so many great people who have come through our line, through our history, through our culture. But I have to ask this question: who is the leader of the Jewish community, or the Asian community,
Right.
or the Hispanic community, or like? I think at some point we have to begin to understand that leadership and legacy has to be a hydra type thing.
Yeah.
Everybody has a role to play in this.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter if somebody gets gunned down, knifed down, cut down, caught up in a scandal, that the legacy is bigger than a person. And that's, I believe, is the mistake that we made, which is why we have such a hard time dealing with the flaws of those who are in these leadership positions. It's not about them.
Right.
Thank them for actually picking up the mantle, um, because a lot of us couldn't do it. It's too heavy. Ask the family of the King family. Ask
Yeah.
the Malcolm family. Like it's too heavy. But I think at some point we have to begin to look in that mirror, like you just stated, and say, all right, where is my role in this leadership? where's my role in this legacy, and how do I carry whatever piece of the mantle over time that I have to carry forth to keep this thing moving, because it ain't just about me.
And I said this to come off of that. You talked about the baton, and it's just a very vivid visual for me because not only do sometimes our generation hold on too long, or generation before us, we want to run
Mhm.
the 800, we want to run the whole 1600 by ourselves. We want to run it by ourselves, knowing. But sometimes, who's ready to take that baton? It's a give and take type thing.
It is.
You
It
know,
absolutely is.
sometimes I feel like when we're ready to give the baton, somebody don't want to get it because it ain't the right color, or is it too? It's too small, and you took too long getting it to me. And it's and in order for us to do legacy right, who takes the time to say when you hear has the baton been given, which a lot of us don't do because it's not. Sometimes we'll create a program and we want to keep that program from as long as we can to not give it to nobody else. A lot of us don't
Right.
like to retire. We like to stay in power, no
Yeah.
matter the age. And I'm thinking about one particular, but I'll get away from that. But at the end of
Because
the time, who's ready to take the baton to keep the race, to keep going? Because to me, Jesse, who took that baton from him? Because there was a time we should have said, "All right, Jesse, we good. You good. You good. Stop.
yeah, yeah,
Stop. Stop.
yeah.
Ooh, ooh, ooh."
That's it. All right.
Look, I got you. I'm going around the curve now. You stay right there. You did your 400. That's the thing that probably was something we could talk about because a lot of people ain't want that baton. Some people don't want
Right.
that. That's
Some
a heavy baton sometimes.
it
400
is.
ain't an easy race. That's what they say when you run that lap. That monkey be waiting for you about at the 250 mark.
Waiting for you.
Everybody want to run this race, dog. And so uh, that's a whole nother show. Because sometimes
Yeah,
we
man.
we hold do some people hold the baton too long, and one is somebody ready to grab that thing when we get ready to get rid of it. 'Cause I don't want to. I don't think you brought up other communities. I've seen a program that is very popular in the black community that was given away by somebody who created it 30 years ago, and it's still going strong.
Hmm.
But it wasn't created by us. But it's still one of the most vibrant programs in a particular area that's still going. And I met the founder. He's like, I ain't touched that in 25 years. I'm like, damn.
Hmm.
So you let it go? You gave the baton and it's here now? But I'm sorry, y'all. We gotta go. It's an hour, 2 minutes. I'm whole different.
Ah, cliffhanger. He left him hanging, dangling right there.
For my boy Bobby J, man, it's your boy E-Glaze. It's been a while, man. We gave y'all 2 weeks to get ready, man. So
We
you'll
did. We
see
did.
you'll see clips all over the place. Lord willing, we'll be back next Sunday to do this again. Y'all have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.